With us today on Live It Up is Jaci Clement, and she runs the Fair Media Council. And I'm really excited to have her here because she was one of the very first guests on my show when I started Live It Up 5 years ago. She's a dynamic person, a fantastic dancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Jaci Clement.
Thank you for that, and congratulations on 5 years later.
Thank you so much. But I really respect you, and I'm always so grateful because that first year when I was starting something, you were one of my first yeses. You know, I called you and I said, I have an idea for a show, you know, and you're like, okay, great, come on over. And you were doing a media event at one of the hotels. I think it was a training event, remember?
Yes.
So tell us about the Fair Media Council.
Sure. It is, as you mentioned, it's a nonprofit organization. So we are a 501c3. Basically, we're dedicated to creating a media-savvy public because we live in a media-driven society. So what we do is twofold. One, we are a media watchdog for the local news. So we do advocate for quality local news because we want what you're reading and what you're listening to really resonate with you. And by that, we mean we want it to be what's actually happening in your community. So we understand there's a great need to keep reporters out there on the streets and actually talking to people about what's happening in the community. So that's part of what we do. The other part of what we do is what you were at. It's really education for businesses and nonprofits, teaching them how to become part of the public conversation. So we do a lot of programming where we'll bring the media out because, one, it's important for you to actually know the reporters and editors that are working in your community, but also teaching people the technique and the skills of how to pitch the media, because it is actually an art form. Understanding news is something that's not easy, and we don't teach it in our school system. So we kind of fast track people's marketing and media relations efforts by saying, we'll be the bridge. We're going to bring you the media. You come out, we're going to teach you some skills, you're going to form some relationships, and then you'll be off and running. So that's what we do.
It's wonderful that you have your big connection day every year.
We do.
And it keeps growing more and more and more.
It is. It is the largest conference in the country that brings out the local news and the community. Bring them together so they have an open dialogue. They can start establishing those relationships, build mutual understanding, because the average person doesn't understand what news is or how to recognize news. You know, there's a statistic out now that shows 1 out of 2 college graduates can't distinguish between fact and opinion. Which is really troubling, one, to begin with, but also when it comes to understanding news, there's so many different types of news these days, and there's so much talk and commentary. So if you can't distinguish between what's a news story and what's an opinion piece, you're in a lot of trouble.
Right. What makes sense and what's just sensationalism.
Right, exactly. So there's a whole lot that goes into it, and as I mentioned, it's unfortunate that we actually live in a country built on the concept of freedom of press and freedom of speech, but we don't teach anyone what that actually means in our school system, K through 12. There's no standard for it. But what we know is children's critical thinking and deductive reasoning skills are formed between the ages of 12 and 15. So if they don't understand how to use news when they're in the 4th to 6th grade time frame, news can very much take advantage of them. And that's what we don't want to see happen. We're dedicated to creating an educated society, and to do that you need to understand the information that's being put out to you so that you can critique it.
And I think people in our community respect you highly because of the fact that your relationships are built upon integrity, you know, authenticity, right? So you're kind of like a media watchdog, not just, I think, for the print publication and for video and everything else, but I think you're almost like a media watchdog for people and their relationships. You know, you have a good eye and a good nose, I think, for almost like investigative reporting yourself.
Well, that goes back to way back when I did start out as a reporter and editor, and that came naturally.
Okay.
You know, and I think a lot of it, you know, really one of the most popular areas of news for everyone is trend reporting. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen next, right? It's like having a little crystal ball. So if you can tap into trends, and if you've reported on trends, you start to see patterns and similarities. So actually a lot of what I do now is looking at the media landscape, you know, seeing every time something's sold or bought and they change programming, it impacts everything else out there. So it's a bunch of taking little pieces and putting it all together as one big puzzle and saying, how is this going to impact the public? Because ultimately it does impact you in some way.
And you also do a good job at rewarding the people that are in media that are doing a good job. You put this whole panel together, this whole contest with, I don't even know how many categories do you have now for your awards?
Geez. Well, we have news media, we also have social media categories. And we were actually one of the first organizations to introduce awards for social media. And at the time, everyone thought, oh, social media is a fad. There's, no reason for it other than it's fun. But we really recognized it as something that could be a force, especially for businesses and nonprofits, as a way to get their messages out. And that's starting to take off nicely. But we have, probably a couple hundred categories now. And the cool thing about the awards program is it's the public that judges the news. So the media enters stories and social media professionals enter their pieces, and it's judged by the public, and the key judging criteria is, was this relevant to you? Did it in some way inform you or educate you into something that you didn't know before? And that's really important.
And how could people get involved besides going to your events and your workshops? Is there another way that somebody could make a difference and maybe participate or volunteer at the Fair Media Council?
Absolutely. There's tons of different ways. We are a membership organization, so we're always looking for businesses and nonprofits to become members, because that also adds validity to what we do, gives us credibility to say, we're not just one person out there with an opinion. We're represented by over 200 companies and nonprofits throughout the New York area that believe in what we do. And a lot of what we do is focused on how do we make everyone here better? What do they need to know? So becoming a member is one way. Coming out to the events, participating in the events, we're always looking for speakers as well as attendees. And we always need volunteers because we are a nonprofit, so it's not like we have a lot of money to throw around.
And we've had some fun at some of your events before. One event, there was you got a chance to have a lunch with, a mover and shaker in the world, and you can get, and we had tickets, and you have a clever way of, like I said, bridging the gap between those that are in media or those that are powerful people in the community and people that want to reach them. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you. But I really feel part of it is people are so afraid of media because they don't understand it, and they're really intimidated by news people. So we try to find a fun way to bring them together.
Yeah, they're people too, right?
Yeah,
they eat lunch, they go to dinner.
Right.
Right. They just don't want to be hounded.
On. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So if we can find a fun way to tap into the pulse of what people are interested in, then it's more fun for everybody.
Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you being here.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're really, like I said, a gift to our community.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And it's fairmediacouncil.org.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you so much. Please stay tuned for more on Live It Up. If you have a nonprofit you would like us to cover, reach out to us. We'd be happy to take a look.